And here we go. So this is Dominaria United, my top 10 enchantments and artifacts. So we're gonna adjust the lighting here a bit. Go from artificial to a little bit more natural. And starting off at number 10, we have the World Spell. Now, I've spoken about this in some of my other videos. The World Spell for a beefy 2 green, 5 colorless is an enchantment saga with the read ahead mechanic. That's it. In Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-saga permanent card from among them. Put it into your hand, with the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And Chapter 3 reads, put up to 2 non-saga permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Reason I have this way down at number 10 is because it is so beefy. Even though you can ramp, if you're not ramping in green, you're playing wrong. But still, it's still a beefy 7 casting cost. And if you're playing in a standard deck, even with your best ramp that you can get, it's still gonna be a little difficult to get out real quickly. But if you can make this thing go off, you dump your Blight Steel Colossus, dump your Emrakul or your other big Eldrazi's out there. So that's why that. Next up is the phasing of Zhalfir. That was on this. Oh yeah, here it is. For 2 blue mana and 2 colorless mana, you get an enchantment saga with read ahead, reads in Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Another target non-land permanent phases out. It can't phase in for as long as you control the phasing of Zhalfir. So you can lock down something for a couple of turns. Chapter 3 reads, destroy all creatures. For each creature destroyed this way, its controller creates a 2/2 black Phyrexian creature token. Well, that, I mean, it's good. It's good. You get board wipe in blue, but the drawback is that they create 2/2 black zombies for every creature. So it's only better if you have the advantage. But I think the idea behind this is that you make your creatures phase out, you destroy everybody else, then you bring in your beefy things, and again, it's probably some stuff with some ETBs or whatever that does some crazy. Oh, you got to sacrifice some creatures or whatnot. So I think that's why I have it way down at number 9. It's powerful in its own right. It has a decent casting cost, but it does have some drawbacks. That's why it's at number 9. So next up, I forgot to. Where this was. I think, okay. We have the Elder Dragon War. There it is. For 2 red and 2 colorless, you get an enchantment saga with read ahead. Chapter 1 reads, Elder Dragon War deals 2 damage to each creature and each opponent. Now that's fun if especially if you're playing against weenies. Your opponents take 2, and all their little creatures, take 2 damage. But that also, your creatures also take 2 damage. Chapter 2 reads, discard any number of cards, draw that many cards. Well, that's something that red does. That could be paired with some interesting things. One that comes to mind is my top number 1 in my creatures and planeswalkers top 10 is Sheoldred, because you can discard your hand and basically almost do a Wheel of Fortune type thing. Discard your hand, draw that many cards, and if you have if you have Sheoldred out, you're gaining, what? If you have 7 cards in hand and they're all bunk, or they're lands and stuff you don't need right now, or if you're playing some kind of crazy dragon reanimator type thing, you got Sheoldred out there, and all of a sudden you discard a bunch of cards and you gain 2 life for every card that you've drawn. So, 7 cards and 14 life. What's not to like about that? So it allows you to kind of cycle your hand and get something better. Next up, at Chapter 3, is create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. So a lot, with the read ahead mechanic, you can skip right to putting out that 4/4 dragon token, and you can do that. So that's useful. But again, it's drawback with the discarding the hand and it dealing the damage to each creature. That's why I have it further down on the list. So next up at number 7 is Combat Research. 1 blue mana, enchanted creature has whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. As long as enchanted creature is legendary, it gets +1/+1 and has ward 1. And if you know what I just talked about, you know what card this is going on, and it's only 1 blue mana. And if you're playing the deck, like a black blue card draw deck, this card is going on Sheoldred. This card is designed for Sheoldred. But it's also designed for any creature in a Sheoldred deck, because when they deal combat damage, they're drawing cards. So And of course, Sheoldred, you know, has Death Touch. But whenever it deals combat damage, draw a card. But it's got to, you know, this is a super value for 1 blue mana. You get the card draw, but you also get a +1/+1 and Ward 1. You put this on Sheoldred. Sheoldred's now a 5/6 Death Touch with Ward 1. She's harder to get rid of, and when she deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card, and with Sheoldred's ability, you gain 2 life. What's not to like about that? Who bloody ha? Next up is Vesuvian Duplimancy. At number 6. There are people that have been talking about how interesting this card is. Vesuvian Duplimancy, 1 blue, 3 colorless, for an enchantment that reads, whenever you cast a spell that targets only a single artifact or creature you control, create a token that's a copy of that artifact or creature, except it's not legendary. And you know what we just talked about? What we just talked about is Sheoldred. And this is blue, and you're going to be playing blue in a Sheoldred deck. Now, this also does all sorts of cool things when so you can get 2 copies of Sheoldred out at a time. And you can still put the combat research on your non-legendary Sheoldred copy. Yeah, that's a copy. You know, it doesn't have the legendary ability, so it doesn't get the +1/+1 and the Ward 1, but it's a copy. You're not really going to care about the copy. You want to keep the original. That's the name of the game in Magic. Keep the original. Copies are just they're cannon fodder. But say like somebody wants to lock down one of your creatures, you know, put it in a binding spell where like an imprisoned spell, like like Intercessor's Arrest or something like that, where you can't activate the abilities, or you just what you basically do is you can kill that creature with a removal spell and create a token that's a copy of it that's not bound. It's like, what? No. And there's all sorts of instant removal spells. So, or because it would be on your turn, or you can even do it on their turn. It's just it's super useful. And also because if you have this out and you slap down your combat research on Sheoldred, you get a second copy of Sheoldred. There's fun, more fun. Hoo-ha! Next up, and this comes from the Commander set, is the Reaver Cleaver. Now, I've spoken a lot about this card. For an artifact, and mind you, it is a legendary artifact, so you can only have one out at a time. But for 1 red mana and 2 colorless, you get a legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, create that many treasure tokens. Equip for 3. Now, I've said lots of places you put this in a dragon deck. You put this on, your ancient copper dragon. You put this on your old gnawbone. Oh my god! You put this on old gnawbone. It basically makes old gnawbone an 8/8. I think old gnawbone is trample as well. If not, but that would be, old gnawbone is not even the standard. So you something like, your ancient copper dragon or some other thing that creates, if you want to create treasure tokens, because evidently, in this set they're trying to move move a lot away from treasure tokens because people found a way to bust treasure tokens, But if you put this on a creature, it can create treasure tokens, so that's always useful. And again, I've spoken of ways to reduce that equip cost and everything. So we'll move on to. Okay, let me find the bloody thing. There it is. At number 4, we have Prayer of Binding. Now, this is one of these binding spells that I've talked about. More accurately, like an imprisoned spell. Well, we'll call it a binding spell for purposes of this. Prayer of Binding is 1 white, 3 colorless for an enchantment that has flash. When Prayer of Binding enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Prayer of Binding leaves the battlefield. You gain 2 life. That's a non-land permanent. Artifacts, enchantments, planeswalkers, creatures. I mean, I've talked about this before when I went over it. It's one more than your standard spell of this kind, but you gain it has the flash and you gain the 2 life. It's definitely worth the price you pay. So hoo-ha. Okay. Next up is, at number 3, is Urza Assembles the Titan. So 2 white, 3 colorless, with for an enchantment saga with read ahead. The chapter 1 reads, Scry 4, you may reveal the top card of your library. If a planeswalker card is revealed this way, put it into your hand. Chapter 2, you may put a planeswalker card with mana value 6 or less from your hand onto the battlefield. And Chapter 3, you may activate the loyalty abilities of planeswalkers you control this turn twice rather than only once. This is your planeswalker hunting card. I consider it a lot better than the world spell. It costs only 5. You've got a huge scry ability where you can locate your planeswalker, especially if you're playing Super Friends, or you're playing with a lot of planeswalkers. And if you already have one in hand, you can read ahead, put it down on the battlefield, because there aren't a lot of planeswalkers that have casting costs more than 6. And there's a lot, and it can deal a lot with if you some mana fixing if you're playing with like multicolored planeswalkers, like Gerard or something like that. Or listen to this, your Dragon. Well, the Dragon is actually a commander, not a planeswalker. Excuse me. I digress. I'm thinking about mana fixing and not planeswalker. So yeah, but something like Gerard, or something you got 3-color planeswalkers or whatnot. But you can put your planeswalkers right out, and then if your planeswalker's already out, you can just pay that, and you can activate your planeswalker abilities twice. Say like you're really close to ultimating, but you're scared that your opponent's gonna get rid of your planeswalker somehow. Activate it twice, go ultimate, and yikes! So that's my number 3. And this video is going to be a little longer, but it is a top 10 video. Next up, we go back over to the the commander cards, and at number 2 is Gerard's Hourglass Pendant. 1 colorless mana for a legendary artifact with flat. Says if a player would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. 4 colorless, tap it, exile Gerard's Hourglass Pendant, return to the battlefield, tap all artifact, creature, enchantment, and land cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. Somebody wants to Armageddon you, or Wrath of God, or just get rid of all sorts of your stuff. Playing what I like to call a Negan deck, get rid of your stuff, or your stuff is my stuff deck. It's useful in 2 ways. You prevent extra turns. If somebody's going to play, some sort of crazy extra turn shenanigans, which in Commander is going to happen all the time. If they want to do some, and it's flash, so the usefulness is if you have the 5 mana and somebody wants to just you're gonna board wipe me? Oh, I got 5 mana out here. Let's tap it. I'll pay 1. I'll flash in my Gerard Hourglass Pendant. I'll pay the 4. I'll tap it. I'll exile it and bring everything back before your turn's even over with. Even though they're all tapped. You're still gonna have to deal with all the stuff, and of course they come back into the battlefield which, you know, if you're playing with a deck with ETB stuff, it's gonna be nasty, nasty, nasty. And finally, my top pick for this, you know, enchantments and artifacts is an artifact at number 1 is Tiller Engine. For 2 colorless mana and an artifact creature construct, it's a 1/3. Whenever a land enters the battlefield tapped under your control, choose one. Untap that land or tap target non-land permanent and opponent controls. So this in a ramp style deck, especially as I said in my lands video, this will see play. And if you can find ways to protect this thing from getting, you know, because this thing's gonna be a target. This is some people have said this is Amulet of Vigor on a stick. Amulet of Vigor on a creature, basically. So if you can find ways to protect this thing, you know, somehow, you know, if you're playing, because this is a commander, you're playing with something, give it Shroud or something. So they can't target it with spells. Or, you know, give it, you know, hexproof and indestructible, or, you know, something like that. And there are numerous cards in this set that, you know, have either hexproof and or indestructible, and they're very, very inexpensive. So Tiller Engine, I think, is going to be a well sought out card, not only in Commander, but it's going to see play in Standard too, because we have all those you know, those dual lands that I spoke about that enter the battlefield tapped, and they're going to see play with this card because, you know, you're getting dual lands right off. It's mana fixing. It's whatever you want it for, whatever you need it for, and you don't have to wait that extra turn. You can start playing that, you know, basically right off the bat. So that's my top 10 artifacts and enchantments for Dominaria United. This is going to be the end of my Dominaria United videos for right now. I will see you guys on the next videos. You guys have a wonderful day. Peace out.